Welcome to the Daily Horror Habit Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Krieger, bringing you daily reviews of currently streaming horror movies for your twisted pleasure. Be aware that these reviews may include mild spoilers. And as always, I hope you enjoy. Today I'm joined by a friend of the show, Alex, to review screenwriter and director Alex Garland's second film, Annihilation, which is currently streaming on Amazon Prime and Hulu. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, Jay?
Not too bad, man. How are you?
Good.
So kind of fun icebreaker that I like to do with first-time guests is ask what the first movie you remember watching that scared you was.
I don't know about the first movie that ever scared me. I think one that stuck out when I first started getting into like horror movies in like middle school, one that kind of like stuck with me was either the original Saw or Hostel. Just because those came out at about the same time. Hostel definitely kind of stuck with me because it was nothing like I'd seen before. Just made me very paranoid as a 12-year-old or something, 13-year-old, whenever it came out. But That movie always kind of stuck with me. Whether it's great or not, I don't know. That's for everybody else to decide. But it's always just been a movie that's kind of stuck with me. You get your friends together and watch that movie, and just everybody's just looking around the corner after.
Right. For our generation, I think that was probably one of the first kind of modern horror movies that kind of captivated everybody by just how extreme it was.
Yeah.
In terms of just like the kind of graphic content.
Yeah, and that for better or worse, it's kind of the whole like torture porn thing, kind of started with, Saw and Hostel, but, or at least it, feels like it, but, whether that's good or not, for the, up for debate, but that movie's always just kind of like stuck with me and sent shivers up my spine.
For sure. Me too. But, today you picked a movie that couldn't be more different than that. So we're talking about Annihilation today. And for those who haven't seen Annihilation, it stars Natalie Portman as Lena, who's a biologist who signs up for a secret expedition into a mysterious anomalous zone where the laws of nature don't really apply. The only thing they do know is that this thing called the Shimmer is the only thing that's known about it for sure is that anything that's gone into it has never come back out alive. So what was something about this movie that you really enjoyed that made you pick it to talk about today?
It's like a, psychological horror and, a lot of sci-fi elements to it. It's really like no other movie that I've seen. Just kind of dives into themes of just how people are, self-destructive and, we'll dive into that, but, it's just the effects and the world building in the Shimmer is just pretty incredible. It's also just, there are scenes in this that are just absolutely terrifying too. I can think of 3 off the bat, that just will absolutely resonate with you, like for, months after you watch the movie for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I talked briefly before recording kind of just about how just trying to decide whether this was technically a horror movie or not.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the movie, I think, touches upon so many different genres. There's like sci-fi, and then there's like a psychological aspect, like you said, but also like there's some pretty terrifying moments in the movie. So I think it kind of jumping between all of these things. And then also, like you said, it is like like the visual effects in the movie are of a caliber that even somebody that watches a lot of sci-fi, I was kind of taken aback by just the Alex Garland's overall kind of just style and adapting.
And a lot of that is just it, like especially with some of the creature designs, like during the alligator scene, that it's close enough to something that you can that in real life, but it's mutated enough that it's very unsettling to see those creatures and all the mutations throughout the movie. Obviously the bear scene being the top one, I think, in terms of just how unsettling and just terrifying that scene is. I remember I was one of the, 7 people who watched this in the theater. And I just remember my girlfriend at the time, she was just like, she almost was like, we gotta go, we have to leave the theater during that bear scene. There were people like having panic attacks in there and everything. And we can dive into that, but that's in terms of just like, monster design. It was just unsettling, and that's why I thought this movie kind of, I can understand why people maybe might not like it, because it is kind of a high concept and everything. But if you really focus on the themes, and just let yourself kind of be immersed in this world and just kind of shocked by it, I think it really hits home. And those scenes with the bear where they find the home footage, I think that to me is like just you see in other horror movies the whole like found footage genre or whatever, and this was only one scene where it was, they were doing the whole found footage thing. But when they cut the guy open and you see all the organs swirling around, and they're just watching in horror and like disbelief. And one of the characters, I think it was I forget if it was Tessa Thompson, I think it was Gina Rodriguez's character. She's like, no, that's not real. That's like a trick of the light. Just because it was so like disturbing and everything. And
that's so. I was surprised again to learn when I watched the making of documentary how much of the movie was actually practical effects. Because you assume like obviously it's effects heavy, but there's barely any green screen in it. And they did something where it wasn't just CGI. It's called like beautying up or something in FX, where a lot of it was like practically based. Like the bear is actually a guy in a bear suit walking around, and then they obviously touch it up in VX. And same with the alligator. And kind of just picking up on little details that you wouldn't really know to look for. Like the reason they use the alligator practical mold, it's like a molding that they made out of it, to kind of like dropping it into the water to get the ripple effects in the water. It's like little details like that kind of help to really immerse and bring these kind of fantastical creatures to life in a way that I think really helps sell the terror aspects of it. And so like a point that you said earlier, you were talking about how like it's things that we're kind of familiar with, like a crocodile, or there was like the bear, but they just have like a way of taking these things that are based in reality and just changing them enough that they end up being even like more terrifying. Like, it's almost more terrifying than it just being some random mutant that they find or something like that, something that they made up. Whereas since there's some basis in reality, no matter how fantastical it might be, like on some level it's relatable and you're familiar with it. So it becomes, for me at least, like even more scary.
So when I did the rewatch, I listened to what the bear was saying, with the screams, and it's just like once you look at like the transcript of what they're saying, the help me and everything, like it's just oh my God, it's like even when you know what's coming, it's still just like, and then when I think it was Gina Rodriguez's character, she's like on the ground and the bear just, takes her jaw off and just goes immediately after Natalie Portman. You're like, you just have no idea what's happening next. And it's that I thought it was shot incredibly too. Just very claustrophobic and unsettling and everything. And that's really like when I think of just, cause whether this is a true horror movie or not, I think it's, it's got elements from all sorts of genres and everything. But when I think of just like scenes that just terrify me to this day, like this is up there, like, top 3, I think.
I mean, even once you get over kind of the idea that like, okay, the monster itself is scary. Garland adds these little touches, like you said, like it's the screaming that it emits it's not only that it's screaming, but it's like the screaming of the character that he killed, that the bear killed previously. And there's even that line that I forget which one of them says it. I think it's Tessa Thompson, who says that it's like, that would be a horrible thing if the only thing that's left over of me is me screaming out in pain.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to her idea of why she essentially like wanders off into the shimmer and basically commits suicide.
Yeah.
It kind of just speaks the idea, and it taps into the kind of like existential kind of subtext in a lot of the conversations they have, where it's like taking your own fate into your own hands, and kind of just which I think goes along with kind of just the melancholy vibe of basically the entire movie.
Yeah, and the whole like taking fate into your own hand. Like, I mean, even at the end of the movie, when, you know, quite literally, like, you know, they decide I can't take this anymore. Like when they find the footage of like Oscar Isaac's character at the end in the lighthouse, and he's, you know, he does the grenade, and he's just like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like, you know, that was also kind of a pretty like disturbing scene, and you know, he's just looking, and you don't know who's behind the camera, you know, until you find out like that, you know, he was like copied, and it's pretty for some reason, like, you know, the found footage scenes or movies or something, they're so hit or miss to me. I thought the places where they used it in this worked very effectively.
Those are two great scenes because it's used so sparingly.
Yeah.
And it's those moments, I think it's more effective too, because it's a testament to like, they did the decision to film this movie linearly, which is not something that they do with a lot of things. And it kind of just helps with the continuity and the flow of the movie.
Yep.
And I think in not reverting to like a flashback or something like that, or like a vision, by making it found footage, we kind of are forced to stay into the moment and stay in the room essentially with these characters. And just, again, like in terms of the heavy practical effects, like in the scene where we see Oscar Isaac cutting into the guy's stomach, a majority of that was all practical effects. And that kind of just obviously heightens everything, because you're not like, okay, this kind of looks goofy or this or that. It's like, it looks like he's cutting into a guy's stomach. It's just kind of helps sell that entire moment. And is definitely one of the more grotesque moments of the film.
I love the soundtrack too. I thought it was just very like ambient and just creepy, and like there are times I thought like the scene where they find the you know, the footage of him cutting into the stuff, the music was just very like unsettling there. You know, the music at the end, like when like in the lighthouse or down in the cave, it was just really like, it was really cool. I thought worked well with the movie, and just very eerie and just ambient, and you know.
Totally. Yeah. So the soundtrack was composed by two composers, Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow. And I think what I like most about it is how alien it feels in a lot of ways. Like it kind of captures the mood and the atmosphere again.
Yeah.
Like this is one of my favorite sci-fi movies, in that it's set relatively close to like our timeline.
Yeah.
But it feels just familiar enough that you can place yourself there, but then it is very like alien and extraterrestrial in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I feel like the soundtrack kind of just reflects that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Like you said, like it's very ambient at certain points, and it kind of fuels the more character-driven emotional parts. But then there's almost like a unique kind of like twang to everything that makes it feel almost foreign or just unnatural in a way that I really, really love.
Very like electronic sounding, like it's, you know, just the soundtrack I think just added to it. I don't know if you know had like a, you know, soundtrack by like Hans Zimmer or something, it would have fit with this movie. But this movie just it just nails that like element and like world building too, just of being in the shimmer. And there are times that like it puts you into just situations where you're like, am I losing my mind with them too? Like I know there's like a pretty quick like time cut, like once they enter the shimmer, and it's just like, she's like, what? I don't even remember setting up camp. Like how many days have we been in here? And I'm like, did I miss something too? Like,
right. And it's very, they do a good job of kind of making that disorientation like very palpable.
Yeah.
And becoming lost in time with the characters.
Yeah. But it's just something that kind of like follows you with the movie. Yeah, and I like uh, what was her name? Is Doctor Ventress. I like her character, Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she kind of was the anchor of the group and everything, while everyone's kind of just working out their stuff. And then at the end, when she's in the cave and everything, and that all comes out, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So,
right.
She explains Annihilation. Everyone's got this self-destructive, that's why everyone's there. And that's why.
Yeah. They describe themselves as like the broken toys, essentially. I think one of the characters does, but this is something that I think is one of the rare cases where the movie adaptation is actually more successful than the novel, for sure. Is that in the novel, none of the kind of warming up to characters or none of the camaraderie between the characters and all the development is in the novel.
Yeah.
A majority of the novel has almost no dialogue in it. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of like exploring this weird world, but you don't have, like you said, the anchor, or you don't have the characters to kind of latch onto and to explore this unfamiliar alien place with them. It's kind of more clinical. Yeah. Whereas the film is definitely more involving with the audience in a way that makes it fantastic.
And I know that Alex Garland was talking about how, it was essentially his adaptation was just, he called it like a memory of the book. So he read it and then he just kind of like went off that, and like he had the permission from the author to like kind of go off track and make it his own thing. And I think that's probably why it worked so well, is because it's, it's not a one-to-one, copy of the novel. That, he took a lot of liberties, in the movie, and I think it works. It is
absolutely,
a shame. Yeah. It's a shame. I wish this movie made more money, because, I'd love to see more Alex Garland get, more and more work, because I think his movies have been fantastic so far.
Yeah, he has a series that came out that was called Devs.
Yep.
Did you see that?
I got it queued up. That's my next show that I'm going to watch.
Yeah, so I started it, and I didn't get too far, and I had stuff come up, but it definitely captures his kind of world building and his technology focused and that kind of extraterrestrial texture that he applies to everything. Again, it's very much, it's based in our time period, but it feels foreign in a way. So it's this interesting contrast, and I think it's why Annihilation works so well, in that we're exploring this alien place, but it's still based in our own world. Like the forest, for the most part, like we can identify this is a forest, this is a swamp, but then you have all of these kind of fantastical exaggerations of evolution where we see like all of the unique foliage. We see the mutated animals, even animals that aren't hostile, where you see like the deer at one point that are mutated and little things like that.
One thing that seemed like pretty cool with the deer, maybe this might have been some kind of foreshadowing too, that they kind of like come in separately and then they almost like sync up, right? And they're they dip down at the same time, they go off, and they're like perfectly synced up with each other. And I think that might have been like a little bit of foreshadowing for the scene at the end in the lighthouse with the copy. I kind of like, watching that, I'm like, wait a second, like why are these beings like synced up with each other? Like, what is that? What is the point of that? And then you kind of see the end, and it's like, you're like, oh, here we go. Here we're seeing it again, and maybe
I think
maybe that was some sort of, copy, like Lena at the end.
Yeah. Something I really appreciated on a rewatch was just how the movie, not only like the plot is paced, but kind of just how things begin to escalate within the Shimmer, and that we see in real time almost how things are beginning to adapt, and how basically the new evolution, like when Natalie Portman is being interviewed by Benedict Wong afterwards, she leaves the Shimmer. She says, he's like, it was destroying everything. And she says, it wasn't destroying, it was creating something new. Yeah. We kind of see that in real time, where we see the foliage start to grow into people and copying into people. Yeah. And of course, like we see their minds all begin to deteriorate and whatnot. And it kind of is just, again, it's one of those things where if we weren't so invested in the characters and we didn't have that development time with them, I don't know how well that would have been translated to the audience.
Yeah.
But I mean, what did you think about kind of just the overall ending of the film? Because it does end ambiguously.
Yeah.
Even though they kind of highly imply what the actual ending is.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the whole lighthouse segment?
It's again, all of this is just very open to interpretation. I think that's the point of the film. The you know what? I don't even know sometimes. Sometimes I start questioning myself, but like when they have their moment at the end, and it's like, are you, my husband, or you my wife? And it's like they don't know. It's like, the whole thing of creating something new instead of like destroying, that they essentially blew up their copies or their real selves. You don't really know, because you see the glowing eyes at the end and everything, and it kind of goes along with that whole idea of creating something new. Like, it's not, maybe nothing was really destroyed, it was just, it's different.
Yeah, I kind of interpret it as like, because they even say that the shimmer is dissipated by the time they get to rejoin at the end, Oscar Isaac and Natalie Portman. But then they have that shimmer in their eyes, essentially, when they're hugging, and it cuts between them. So it's almost like the shimmer came and it observed as much as it needed to, just so it could like create a copy that could fully assimilate.
Yeah.
Two questions that came to mind while I was rewatching it, things I didn't notice. So it never dawned on me before that the house that they take refuge in, that they get attacked at later, that's a copy of Natalie Portman's house from before.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an exact copy of their house, and I never realized that.
I didn't either.
Yeah. So my question from that is everything that each of the characters sees somewhat related to their own life?
Yeah.
Like, it's the same series of events. Like, they're still going into a house, they're still getting attacked by monsters, but is everybody's perception of it, like the minute details, different? Because another thing that I picked up on is that Oscar Isaac has in that scene where they're in bed together, he has a tattoo on his chest of a bear. And I never realized what that was originally.
Oh.
So I don't know if like Natalie Portman perceives the thing attacking them as like some kind of embodiment
of some monster. Like, and that kind of goes along with their whole, affair that she has. And,
exactly.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because there's that scene where she finishes banging that coworker, and he's like, he says something to the effect of like, "Are you afraid that he knows?" kind of thing. So that's kind of like what I interpreted the bear attack as, is like Oscar Isaac's subconscious going after them in a way. But again, this portion of the conversation's all speculation.
Yeah. And she says that thing where he's like, do you hate yourself or something? She's like, no, I hate both of us or whatever. Like, maybe that, like, and maybe like at the end when they have that embrace and everything seems to like, whether they know each other or not, but it seems like, they're creating something new, and maybe this is a better version than what they had before. No one really knows.
Yeah. But I think I agree with you, like, in that you were saying you hope that he gets to do more stuff, even though this movie didn't do well, unfortunately. Which it's one of those things where people could be like, well, it didn't do well, so it must not be good. Which
it's not true at all.
Which is not the case. Yeah, we can't.
General audiences
just
generally don't like to think.
That's putting it nicely too.
Yeah.
Because they definitely had there was like infighting between the producers when they were trying to make it, and there was. Some people were saying like we should dumb some of these things down, but I think then if they had dumbed down a lot of the kind of existential questions that the characters have to ask themselves, that there might be some added validity to the idea that they did not execute on this as well as they could have,
Yeah. I do have one kind of criticism of this movie though, is the pacing sometimes is off. Something like, I feel like the first act is like kind of, before they go into the shimmer is, I can understand like maybe audiences saying like, oh, it's, the pacing's like kind of slow and everything, which, may or may not be true. I think the whole part where they're in the shimmer is great. Like you're just kind of on the edge of your seat and everything. But I do see the beginning of the movie being like, maybe this movie could have been about 10 minutes shorter and some of that condensed in the first act. But that's a minor criticism because of what follows.
I would agree with that. The only thing is I've read the book and I remember like so by comparison, the first act in the movie is so much faster than in the book.
Yeah.
Because the book, like again, like the book is very clinical in a lot of ways and there isn't a lot of dialogue that makes you get engaged and kind of want to get to know these characters. So it's super dense in the beginning of the book. And by comparison, like I find the beginning of the movie actually on a rewatch to be a lot more streamlined. But if I hadn't read the book, I don't think I would have felt that way.
And I get you have to, set up the characters because you have to, you need to connect with the characters and everything. So I understand having to set that up. Again, just a minor criticism, but I can see audiences, going back to, why this wasn't so successful. It is kind of high concept, when most people think of like, they see in marketing, bunch of women going in with like, assault rifles and everything. They're probably thinking, oh, this is gonna be like sci-fi action or whatnot. Which is a shame. Which is a shame because, I'd love to see more of these in the theater. But you can tell like, especially with how the, movie industry is trending. And you can even see it with this movie that the international rights went directly to Netflix. Like this didn't get released in theaters internationally.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
They might have been released internationally, but this got released internationally on Netflix at the same time as the movie got released here in theaters. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it might have also played into
doesn't show piracy or
exactly. So, they were trying to kind of make their money back by selling the international rights and say, hey, you can watch this day one on Netflix if you're not in the US. So,
yeah, I really wish I had been able to see this in the theater when it came out.
It was an experience. And it's just that, you're in the dark, big theater with, surround sound blasting and everything. Like it was a very like immersive experience. And I'm really glad that I got to see it on the big screen. Because some movies just, are amplified by, what you see. And this is definitely a movie that was, all the tension and, terrifying parts were just amplified by being in the theater.
Yeah, I got a new 4K TV a couple months ago, and this was the movie that I broke it in with because I was just
good choice.
The old one the old one that I had was not cutting it, so I was like, I need to fully enjoy this in all its 4K glory.
Yeah, I watched it in 4K too. I watched it in 4K streaming, and I'm just like, thank God I have Fios.
Right.
I needed every every gigabyte streaming of that fiber optic goodness.
So last question for you. So you said you were going to watch Devs, but I don't think it's really realistic that we would ever get, we both enjoy what Alex Garland did with this universe, but it's not really realistic that he's going to get another opportunity to make a movie out of it. Because there are 2 other books, but clearly this underperformed. So I find it difficult to believe that a studio is going to kind of want to go after a film of this. But do you think that they could make a series adaptation out of the Annihilation universe, whether you know about what happens in the other 2 books or not?
I've never read the other books, so I can't really talk for like what the plot points are. I could see that. The thing is, like, I'm satisfied with just this world and this movie. I've never really thought of it being turning this into like an adaptation. It could be interesting though, seeing, maybe if you did a series of like, the guys who went in before, where they're in there for a year and really start to see kind of like the mania of being in the shimmer for like extended periods of time. That might be an interesting, kind of thing to dwell on.
Yeah. I would love to see, again, like, I don't know the plot of the other books, but I would love to see him be able to be in this world that is like kind of grounded, but at the same time, it's very strange, and it kind of makes the possibilities of the different things that he can explore obviously pretty endless. And I love that. That's why I've actually decided after rewatching, I'm going to go back and finish Devs. Just like that world building and that texture that he applies to everything. I'm such a big fan of. But yeah, I appreciate you picking this, giving me a chance to revisit this, because it was long overdue on my part.
Yeah, this is only the second time that I've watched it. No, sorry, third time. And it's you just pick things up on rewatches. It's one of those movies that you can pick new things up every time, just because there's so many different interpretations. So, and also just the horror aspect of it, some of just the most terrifying things. Kind of one last thing to put in. I forgot how terrifying that spore thing was, like in the pool that they find.
Oh yeah.
I had a tough time sleeping after that. That was kind of like ingrained in my head.
Yeah, there's a ton of little moments like that, and again, like you said, on a rewatch, I start to pick up more and more details, and it shows just the amount of like layers of detail that he's able to put into everything.
Yep.
But yeah, this was a great movie to pick, and I appreciate having the opportunity to chat about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. I'd love to have you on again sometime soon. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Daily Horror Habit podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Daily Horror Habit on your preferred streaming service, and follow @Daily Horror Habit on Instagram or @Daily Horror Pod on Twitter.